into the life of the country.
And that national discussion is going to mean confronting stereotypes and fears.
It's something that has been taught that this is not right. And I mean, and you have to get over that. I mean, regardless of what you might feel intellectually, if you've been taught something since you were a child, I think it's very difficult. I mean, even for gay people, I think they're struggling with the issues that they're not. So, especially older gay people might struggle with the issue that they don't deserve this.
Right.
But everyone does deserve fair and equal treatment under the law, regardless of whether they are gay or straight.
There are very few people who can really argue that you shouldn't be treated fairly and equally. And people, I think, are getting past the idea of gay and lesbian people just being about sex.
But if it's not about sex, what are people so afraid of?
In many ways, I think that we, especially in the US, are very much a fear-ridden society at the moment. There's fear of everything, fear of being attacked by terrorists, fear of change, fear of all kinds of things.
Norman feels that the issue has been over-politicized.
These are various groups that are trying to maintain power. And so they've chosen these wedge issues. I mean, and the wedge issues are so bizarre. I mean, the gay rights, environmental issues, climate change, all these things. What does that have to do with politics? I mean, it's about understanding, it's about trying to work through understanding of these different issues. And yet they've been brought in to divide people, and people are accepting them and incorporating them in their religious beliefs.
Do not be fooled. This civil unions legislation is merely a stepping stone for the same-sex marriage movement.
Marriage, in God's view of two people of the same sex, is wrong.
Homosexual sex, homosexual privilege, or homosexual marriage is a moral evil.
It's very easy for political exploiters to go after that fear and legitimize these people's fears and actually make them feel that they're right to be scared about this, that this is a slippery slope, that this means, it's like these bizarre pronouncements that, you're going to come and want to marry your dog.
And I'm simply here to tell you that terrible things will result. My wife was just telling me about a woman who went to Australia, which was in the news, and you could probably Google it or something, but she went there to marry a dolphin. And the trainer said, okay, fine, we'll have a marriage between you and the dolphin. We have marriage between brothers and sisters. We have marriage between 5 parties. We have marriage between 4 bisexuals. I mean, it becomes so loose that you, as the government officials, are failing to preserve the soundness of our culture, our government, and our nation.
Everybody knows that marriage is not just a word or a bundle of legal rights. Marriage is an institution in the society of unparalleled respect and prestige. It is the way that the government recognizes couples going back for hundreds of years. The only reason the legislature withheld the word is because it did have meaning. And these couples deserve the same respect and dignity as every other couple in Connecticut and deserve the same right to equality under the Constitution.
It's a matter of human rights, that it has to be on the same basis. You can't create a separate thing and say, well, you have to stand over here and you stand over there because of who you are.
You are comparing this social good to the exclusion of races. Laws that kept the races apart had absolutely nothing to do with the intrinsic definition and goal of marriage.
My family moved here to Connecticut because we were burnt out of North Carolina by people who carried Bibles and cross. They wore white, and they wanted us out of their neighborhood because we were different. I felt the pain of not being able to drink in the fountains. I felt the pain of never being able to really ride on the buses with other children. It's hard, and I know it's hard for you to understand that. It's hard for you to see the analogy of being discriminated against. It's hard to feel what it's like when you know you cannot belong because people are using religion and government to isolate you. You haven't lived it because you are, not any fault, but you are a white man from North. You haven't been there. You're not gay. Discrimination, no matter who or what you believe in, is difficult. Those are things that really are about civil rights. And there is no difference in this struggle. It's a different agenda. It's a different direction. But it's still discrimination.
At the end of the day, it's all about what's fair. And most people don't want to see their friends and neighbors get less than their fair share.
My experience, certainly, all except the most rabid ideologues, is that when you talk to people about the practicalities, I mean, people who know us, I mean, I haven't come across anybody who said that we shouldn't be able to have all the same things, that we shouldn't be able to express our love for each other, be protected by insurance, be protected by legal protections that everybody else has.
And equal rights for everyone really does mean equal rights for everyone, not certain rights for some people.
Civil unions is not enough. We're here to say that the only thing that is equal to marriage is marriage.
If you interpret it as clearly as a human issue that everybody has equal rights, there's no halfway about that. And if you suddenly create a class of people and then rule and say, well, you know, everybody can get married but gay same-sex couples can't, then that's going to have complications in other areas of life, in federal relationship between the states.
The federal government only recognizes marriage, and these couples are deprived of the union that is recognized by our federal government.
Ultimately, that has to be resolved. It may take decades, who knows, given the current makeup of the court, but on the other hand, it might happen more quickly than people think, because ultimately you have to make sure in a federal constitution, you've got to deal with those conflicts between state constitutions.
Federal discrimination will end someday, and when that happens, without marriage, these couples will be deprived of the important federal benefits like Social Security and tax protections.
Ultimately, there are going to be people who are married in Massachusetts who are going to move to other states and who are going to need to adjudicate issues involving divorce, children, inheritance, all of these things. If that is not addressed in a fair way, it seems to me it'll be an absolute nightmare for everybody, not just the same-sex couples. And so it'll be in the interests of everybody that it gets resolved in a fair way, eventually. The question is how long.
Straight or heterosexual marriage any different or any less than it was before. So I don't really understand what the big deal is, and I think it's just plain old homophobia.
I think it's important to be able to call it marriage because that's the word. And people argue what's in a word. Well, if it weren't that important, there wouldn't be so much opposition to allowing us to use it.
If there was marriage equality in this country, we wouldn't have had to go through the 10 years plus that we have gone through. Suzanne would have had the right to sponsor me as a spouse.
We all bleed red. You know, we all pay our taxes, go to work every day, want a good life for ourselves and our children if we choose to have any. We want the world to be peaceful. I mean, we all basically want the same things out of life.
Marriage is a social construct. Marriage is what we as a society says it is.